welcome to Hoops Tonight here at The Volume. Happy Thursday, everybody. Hope all of you guys are having a great week. As promised, we have a film session today on Game 4 of the NBA Finals. We're going to be digging into two specific stretches. The early third quarter stretch, where the Spurs gave up a 16-0 run that kind of lost control of the dynamic of the game, where they had such a big lead, where the life was sucked out of MSG, and it felt like the Spurs were in complete control, and they kind of opened the door to hope for the Knicks during that stretch. That was their sloppiest stretch that I want to zoom in on. Then we're going to dig into just about every possession from them blowing a 20-point lead over the final 9.5 minutes of this game. Lots to dig into on both ends of the floor. You guys know the drill. Before we get started, subscribe to the Hoops Tonight YouTube channel so you don't miss any more of our videos. We have a goal to get to 150,000 subs before the end of this postseason. So it would mean a lot to me if you guys would take a second to scroll down and hit that subscribe button. If you're already subscribed, like this video, sign up for post notifications. That helps us a lot. All right, let's talk some basketball. So again, really quickly before we dig into the film, just a couple of kind of big picture things. A lot of what I talked about last night showed up in the film, essentially meaning in that early third quarter stretch, the sloppiness from the Spurs, just kind of making a couple of like really avoidable errors that ended up sparking the initial run, like little just bad bits of effort. I thought Keldon Johnson was the guy who really stood out to me on film. Like, he had a really bad rotation or lack thereof out of a Karl-Anthony Towns double team that led to a wide open three on the weak side. He had a play where do you guys remember when Mikal Bridges had that transition layup that Wemby tried to block? On that play, Keldon's just jogging back and allows Mikal to cut behind him when that was his matchup on that particular transition defense play. Little kind of things like that where you're like, at the time, it doesn't seem like much because you're up 20-something and it feels kind of just like part of what happens in a game like that. In the regular season, I get that to a certain extent. No one's going to continue to play hard when you're up by that much. But in this sort of situation, when you're this close to the finish line of the NBA season, I think those sorts of lapses in effort and execution are somewhat inexcusable. There was another one where Keldon tried to shoot a layup over a triple team underneath the basket, fell down, and then on the ensuing play, because he fell down trying to shoot over a triple team, gave up a 5-on-4 transition sequence that led to an OG Anunoby wide open layup. Again, a lot of these like just little tiny mistakes. I don't mean to single out just Keldon. He was certainly the one that shouted out to me the most on film, but there were several, you guys will see in the film, so many just little avoidable mistakes that kind of sparked that initial bit of success for the Knicks as they started to crack that door open in their comeback. Down the stretch, a couple of things. We talked a little bit last night about zooming in on the Knicks on offense. We talked a lot about that like kind of wave screen where they would have Cat come set the first screen and then Jose come set the second screen. One of the things that was happening is they were running it with a cleared side. And what actually I found fascinating as we dug into the film, I actually thought that was a mistake ultimately. And the one time they ended up getting a really, really good look out of that was a sequence where OG Anunoby actually wheeled back through to the strong side and created a spacing dynamic that was difficult for the Spurs to rotate out of as OG Anunoby ended up getting a wide open three in the left corner. On many of those sequences down the stretch, the Spurs were actually able to relatively easily double with Wemby, then rotate out of it because of how congested the spacing was on the weak side. And so that's something that I think as we head to game 5 for the Knicks, if they try to rerun that lineup and try to rerun that dynamic, I think they should probably, right as Jose Alvarado is going to set that second screen, I would have OG wheel through to the strong side right as Wemby is committing and actually make it more difficult for them to rotate out of it as easily as they did. A lot of like simple mistakes down the stretch in that run. Like there was like a guard screen between Devin Vassell and Dylan Harper against Jalen Brunson and Jose Alvarado, where they just randomly doubled Jalen Brunson and he just pitched it over the top easily to a wide open Jose Alvarado for 3. Like those are the kinds of things where if you dig into it, Brunson hit a couple of really tough shots down the stretch. He had a tough pull-up 3 over the top of Wemby that I thought was very well defended. He hit like a incredibly tough floater over Stephon Castle on a possession that I thought was really well defended. Those aren't the plays that are going to beat you over the large sample. The ones that are going to beat you over the large sample are the wide open catch and shoot threes. And a lot of those I thought were just execution errors for the Spurs. And if they go into game 5 and the Knicks attack the same way with that cleared side and the Spurs execute well, they're going to continue to get stops. And I think the next kind of adjustment there for the Knicks is, again, once they do manage to pull Wemby up into the screen with that kind of wave screen that they were setting, where you have, Cat set the first one and then Jose set the second one. I think they need to kind of have a little bit more off-ball movement as they wheel OG through to try to create a spacing dynamic that's harder for the Spurs to rotate out of. On the other end of the floor, the other kind of detail I want to zoom in on, the rushing of the guards. And this, you have to give the Knicks some credit for their ball pressure and the job that they did just kind of speeding everybody up, because you could see the guards kind of rushing through the screens. You could see Steph Castle bobble a simple swing pass down the stretch because he's just stressed out by the pressure that the Knicks are playing with. So give the Knicks some credit, but to a certain extent, the Spurs got to slow down and execute. There was several plays where like Wemby didn't even get a chance to set a screen because the guards start moving too fast. Other plays where Wemby just simply needs to set a better screen. These are things where when you cut those corners, you make yourself easier to guard. And ultimately, when the Spurs run their sets, their double screen sets up top, whether that's their stagger or their 45 action, whatever you want to call it, when they run that stuff at the top of the key and they set good screens and their guards are patient and the guard on ball looks to attack, that's another thing you'll see. Several possessions where Spurs guards came off the screen and then just inexplicably picked up their dribble, almost panicking, instead of doing what they were doing in the first half, looking to turn the corner and attack before they make those kick-out reads. But when they execute their stuff, they tend to get good shots. It's when they lose focus on their execution, really on both ends of the floor, that things fall apart for them. When we talk about we've reached the phase of the series where it's less about adjustments, again, we saw some adjustments. OG Anunoby primarily guarded De'Aaron Fox down the stretch last night, did a really good job. Whereas in earlier stretches of the series, we've seen, Mikal Bridges get reps there. We've seen a lot of different looks there on the offensive end, the Jose Alvarado in the closing group, the different defensive looks that the Spurs ran with. Yes, there are little adjustments, little tweaks on both ends of the floor, but ultimately we've reached an execution and play with force battle. Like, who's playing with the most force, who's executing their stuff better. That's really what's going to determine the winner over the course of the tail end of this series. And yes, the Knicks have a 3-1 lead, but the Spurs have 2 of the next 3 games at home, and we would be foolish to count them out at this point. The Knicks should and will be favored, but the Spurs absolutely have a shot. And I think that execution and force battle will be the determining factor as we head down the stretch. Without any further ado, let's get into the film and start breaking down some of how this went down. As all of you guys know, I play a ton of basketball. I used to play just an obnoxious amount. I used to go up to the University of Arizona Rec Center and I'd play pickup for like 4 consecutive hours. Then when I turned 32, I noticed a difference in my recovery, my ability to play at the same level of intensity day in and day out. I've always wondered about what supplements could benefit me as I try to keep my basketball playing days going for as long as possible. You guys know I have no interest in giving up anytime soon. If that sounds familiar to you, check out Mars Men. It's a potent, natural testosterone supplement that optimizes your body's ability to absorb it. It gives you the same benefits of TRT, but without the synthetics, needles, or dependency. Mars Men testosterone only has real natural ingredients that support healthy T levels, stamina, and recovery. Something that can give you the benefits of increased testosterone, but without the scary long-term issues. Plus, it's made in the US, it's third-party tested, and there's a 90-day money-back guarantee, so there's no risk. Worst case, if you don't absolutely love it, and you get your money back. But over 91% of users report higher energy levels. Thousands of guys are feeling incredible results. Just check out the reviews on the website to see for yourself. For a limited time, our listeners can get 50% off for life, plus free shipping and 3 free gifts at mengotomars.com. That's mengotomars.com for 50% off and 3 free gifts when you check out. It's also available on Amazon. After you purchase, it will ask you where you heard about them. Please support our show and tell them that our show sent you. All right, as you guys can see in this first clip, Jalen Brunson, I thought, did a much better job as a game manager down the stretch of this game, just with his decision-making out of basic situations. So, very simple here. You have Jalen Brunson as he's dribbling through, just making a simple read, a simple passing read that he wasn't making much in the first 3 games. He has Wemby on a switch. beats him cleanly with a right to left crossover, gets into the lane. This would be, in a lot of cases, a shot attempt for Brunson, a floater over the top of Julian Champagnie, something along those lines. And it would be a shot that Jalen can make. It just would be relatively inefficient because these are difficult shots over a good defensive team. But he takes a very simple passing read to Josh Hart in the corner, extra pass to OG Anunoby, wide open catch and shoot three. This, again, when I talk about game management, it's about seeing the bigger picture. Can Brunson make that shot? Yes. If he takes that shot and makes it, is it even something that registers for us? Probably not, because it's just such a common basketball play, especially for Jalen Brunson. But the big picture of the total number of possessions your offense has to generate a shot in in an entire basketball game dictates that you have to make more decisions like that keep your teammates in rhythm and keep everybody involved to make your life easier over the large sample. OG Anunoby probably doesn't hit 7 threes if Brunson doesn't make a larger investment in simple playmaking during the beginning part of this run to get OG into rhythm. Here's an example of what I was talking about with the Spurs bailing out of drives early. So we're running a double drag here because Steph actually gets an angle on Josh Hart from the first screen from Julian Champagnie. Wemby slips out, but there's a lane here, right? He's got Josh Hart on his hip. He could very easily kind of methodically work down the lane here to try to get the Knicks defense to react. Watch how quickly Steph Castle bails out and throws the pass. Like, when you're driving downhill in this situation, your job from right here is to attack with enough force to get Karl-Anthony Towns to step up. Once Karl-Anthony Towns steps up, you have a basic 2-on-1 over here where if Mikal Bridges doesn't tag, you have a lob to Wemby. And if Mikal Bridges does tag, you have the skip to Devin Vassell in the corner. But because he bails out before, like, he slows down his drive. Look, you can literally see him let his foot off the gas, not make any attempt to body Josh Hart to kind of slowly work into the lane. And Cat's not engaged at all. Cat's home. Where's the read? So he's just throwing a lob pass for no particular reason up high, and it ends up leading to a really tough shot and a miss for Victor Wembanyama. That's the kind of dynamic you'll see a lot from the Spurs guards here down the stretch of this game, where they just were frankly not really looking to attack as they were turning downhill in these actions. I thought this was a decent drive and kick possession overall. And like you guys will see straight up here that they end up getting a decent look for Keldon Johnson driving downhill. But the main issue I have here is that they didn't run anything. So again, this is 9 minutes left. You're up 27. So it's not like you're in any sort of real trouble, but you didn't run anything. This is not running offense. This is just playing pickup basketball. Oh, I'm going to try to drive on OG Anunoby. Okay, I'm going to kick back to Devin Vassell. Okay, Devin Vassell is going to rip through on Jalen Brunson. Like, they end up getting a decent look on the first drive. Even then, though, from here, Keldon needs to make this kick out pass to Devin Vassell. He doesn't. Shoots over Josh Hart, misses. Then he shoots over a triple team. Off the triple team, he falls on the ground. And on the ensuing possession, because he falls on the ground and it gives up a 5-on-4 advantage, and as you guys will see running the other way, the Knicks end up getting a wide open layup for OG Anunoby, or a dunk, I should say. So again, as you can see, they don't run anything. They get a couple of decent drive and kick attacks, namely started by Devin Vassell beating Jalen Brunson off the dribble, but then Keldon Johnson makes a couple of bad reads and then falls on the ground and gives up a dunk going the other way. Just seems like nothing, right? Okay, you got it. Congrats, you cut it to 25. Doesn't seem like much, right? But these are all the little things that began the avalanche. Then you follow it up. So they just get this transition dunk, and you follow it up on the very next possession with a bad transition three from Julian Champagnie. That's not a good look. Again, seems like small things at the time, but these are the kinds of things that end up leading to the avalanche. But here we have just a botched switch between Wemby and Keldon Johnson. So Keldon's guarding Cat. What Wemby wants to do is he wants De'Aaron Fox to switch on to Mikal Bridges and Keldon Johnson to switch on to Jalen Brunson so that he can hang back by the rim as close as he can, since Cat is the one that's closest to the rim in this situation. But in the miscommunication, look at, like, and this is the part that bothers me. Like, Wemby has already switched on to Cat here. Right here, he switched on to Cat. Keldon's not in a defensive stance. He's just standing. He's literally just standing, not really doing anything. Then Wemby point switches out, and it's too late, and Jalen Brunson gets the three. I don't think that's 100% Keldon's fault. I think that's also Wemby's fault. He probably needs to communicate that action a little bit earlier. But you can kind of sense just the lack of intensity, specifically from Keldon. Keldon's kind of in chill mode here during an NBA Finals game. And it was a big part of what led that initial avalanche. Go down to the other end of the floor. We have De'Aaron Fox with a very sloppy turnover on a pocket pass. Again, seems like just a small thing, but now it's 22. De'Aaron Fox cleared side ball screen with Wemby. Pocket pass is going to, Wemby's not even rolling. He's popping. So Fox ends up throwing it to the roll instead of to the pop that leads to the turnover. Wemby ends up saving this with a kickball, if you guys remember. This play drove me crazy. So Dylan Harper literally has Jalen Brunson on a switch in a transition cross match. Boom, you've won the battle. Get the hell out of the way. Clear out here. If Keldon wants to sit in the dunker spot, fine. Fox in the corner, Vassell on the wing, Wemby up top. Give Harper space to attack Jalen Brunson. No, instead we're going to set a ball screen for no reason, and we're going to just throw the ball to Devin Vassell, who's going to jack up a contested catch and shoot three with 11 on the shot clock. Just really bad offense. I thought this was a beautiful pin-in flare screen from Josh Hart that ended up getting OG Anunoby open. So as you can see, it's kind of a transition situation. Wemby's technically guarding the corner man in these sequences. So Fox is on Hart. So what Hart does here that's really smart is he understands that Wemby's not going to want to close out to the corner. So even though Fox is being guarded, even though Hart's being guarded by Fox, he sets a screen on his own man, understanding that it's going to cause this dynamic where Wemby's not going to want to close out. Ends up leading to the open three for OG, who pays it off. Another simple read from Brunson. Actually, that was Cat at the top of the key. Another simple read. Those simple reads are so important to establish rhythm for your team. Now, ensuing possession, it's a 10-0 run. You're only up 19 now. We're going to get a Keldon Johnson corner three with 20 on the shot clock. Again, a makeable shot. It's just not a great shot. Hated this offensive possession from the Spurs. So you actually do force a miss on Mikal Bridges. Still up 19. Watch this possession. We dribble it up. We pass it to the corner. We pass. We're running kind of a little bit of a guard screen with a simple hedge and recover. The hedge and recover is really easy to use against a player who doesn't want to take a pull-up three like a Harper, because OG can just go under like he did there under Brunson. Now the possession's dead. We're throwing it over to Fox. Fox is now going to just shoot a step back three over Josh Hart. So again, these are the possessions where I really look back and I think the Spurs are going to be kicking themselves when you blew the largest chunk of the lead just playing stupid, sloppy basketball. Very simply here on a baseline out of bounds, look at how Jose Alvarado just screens Cornette, since Cornette's on Hart, ends up leaving a wide open Josh Hart at the top of the key. Now your lead is 16 points. All that happened in about 3.5, 4 minutes. All right, let's fast forward here to the fourth quarter run. So Wemby has that kind of triple tip-in play that pushes the lead to 20. Here is the Keldon Johnson rotation play that I was talking about. So Cat's here and he draws a double team, right? On the double team, Cat ends up making just a bailout pass to Mikal Bridges here on the wing. Okay, now what? Steph Castle is Cat's matchup. He's going to stay home. Keldon's job right now is to begin rotating. This is now a one-on-one. You should be sprinting out of this right now to recover so that you don't give up an open shot. Watch how every Spur just kind of stands. And it leaves the open skip pass. As soon as you force this guy to pick up his dribble and he throws the pass, you need to be sprinting out. And in that sequence, if it's Fox to the corner and Keldon up to the wing, whatever it is, that rotation needs to begin right now, as soon as the ball is out of his hands. Instead, everyone stands. And as a result, it's just a simple swing pass. Like when you give up a double team and you, out of the double team, throw it to a guy who holds the basketball, like straight up holds the basketball for multiple beats, and then you still give up a wide open three, that's just bad rotations. And again, you're like, oh, we're up 20. It's not a big deal, right? But this is, again, the beginning of the avalanche that cost them in the fourth quarter. Here's a little battle that Cat wins on a Wemby lob. Here's that action we talked about in the series preview where they try to run basically a pin screen on the weak side for Wemby to come through with Brunson. They've been doing a really good job of just top locking Wemby on this action the few times they've tried to run it in the series. So Wemby appropriately back cuts the top lock, right? Looks like he's open. Steph makes the pass. It's a good pass. But look at just the little, we talked about this last night, every little shove. Look at Cat just give Wemby a little shove with his right arm right there. Right there, see? And that ends up being just enough to disrupt Wemby and cause him to miss this layup. It doesn't seem like much, but that's just a tiny battle that saves 2 points that gives your team a chance to win. And again, this is why I think the officiating has been such a stupid storyline in this series. Like the Knicks have been beating the shit out of Wemby every bit as much as the Spurs have been beating the shit out of Jalen Brunson. And their ability to beat the shit out of Wemby and make life hard from around the basket is a big part of why they're up 3-1. So like, to me, officiating is just a non-story. Even like Wemby should have gotten a flagrant. Well, he had no business getting a flagrant for that inadvertent elbow against Cat last night, even though I agree he should have got one for the Brunson push. So like, it's a wash. Officiating is a non-story to me in this series. And then here's the play. Again, Keldon Johnson on the ensuing possession. Here's your matchups, right? Fox is on Jose Alvarado. Keldon's on McHale. These 3 guys are matching up with the 3 trailing Knicks. Keldon's just jogging, not matched up with anybody, gives up the wide open layup to Mikal Bridges. This is where I was talking about the Spurs guards kind of rushing. Like, look at Steph Castle just go. He's running before Wemby even has a chance to get set. And so as a result, Jose Alvarado easily navigates the screen, which leads to a swing-swing dynamic that leads to a bad ISO. And of course, Wemby ends up missing the ISO here, the little jab step jumper over Cat. So really where this play gets messed up is Steph's got to slow down, catch, wait for Wemby to come set a screen. If Wemby comes and sets a screen, then in all likelihood, Cat's going to have to commit more to the ball handler, or you might even force a switch. Now the Knicks defense is compromised. You could probably get an open 3 or something around the basket, but instead that's a little execution error that botches the ball screen, which leads to the bad ISO. And as I was talking about, you're going to see lots of examples of this later in the show. I talked about this a lot last night, where cleared side spacing makes it easier to double and rotate out. When you clear the side, it just creates a weird spacing dynamic. So we get a double screen here, right? And you'll see this consistently. Whenever Wemby sees the first guard lay the wood on the first defender and he knows the screen is accomplished, he won't set the second screen. He'll slip, right? So he slips out. Success. You got Dylan Harper going downhill. But look at the spacing dynamic. Because you have the side cleared, you have Keldon Johnson and Steph Castle standing 10 feet away from each other, which leads Keldon Johnson to leak into the short corner. Now you've got these 3 guys kind of all standing on the same side. Keldon's not really in scoring position here. Even if he throws that pass, it's going to be pretty easy for Cat or one of these other guys to turn around and contest him at the rim. So this is the downside of running that cleared side spacing. It creates a dynamic where it's pretty easy to rotate on the weak side because of how congested everyone is. Dylan Harper ends up throwing a rifle kickback pass that leads to this bad step back 3 for Steph Castle. Now, this is where Steph Castle ends up drawing fouls on Jose Alvarado during this lineup grouping. Here, just another cleared side ball screen, but he ends up attacking Jose Alvarado, and because of the size advantage, he just powers through him and draws a foul. I was confused as to why they didn't go to this more throughout the game. He does end up getting one more foul on him here in a few minutes. Another simple read from Brunson that Brunson was not making earlier in the series. He drives here into the corner, and instead of trying to like force his way through or low gather or something like that, he just takes a simple read to OG Anunoby in the corner and knocks down the 3. A lot better game management from Jalen Brunson in this game. Here's another one of those little battles. Wemby kind of walks the ball up the floor into a DHO with Harper. Watch Josh Hart just apply pressure here. In the process, like, again, just that little bit of like a push, a little bit of physicality causes Dylan Harper to lose his balance along the end line and turn it over. Just one small battle out of many. Like, to Josh Hart's credit, between that pin screen that I showed you guys that got OG the 3 and then that one, those are a couple of big plays in this game. Here's the other foul that Steph Castle draws on Jose Alvarado. Fast forward a little bit, just cleared side ISO, draws the foul. Jalen Brunson's dad doesn't like it, but it was a clear call. Here come those wave screens. Today's show is brought to you by presenting sponsor Hard Rock Bet, Florida's sportsbook. The NBA Finals are here. The lights are brighter, the pressure is higher, and every possession can define a legacy. Will New York finally end a 53-year drought and bring a title to the Big Apple? Or will San Antonio's young superstar tip off the next great dynasty run? However you see it playing out, head over to Hard Rock Bet and turn your picks into a payday. Because once the final buzzer sounds, that's it for hoops until next season. So shoot your shot while you can. And same game parlays are the best way to get in on the action. Big teams, superstars, clutch performances. There's so many storylines to bet on. So why not stack them all and do a same game parlay for a bigger payout? If you're ever late to tip off, don't worry. Hard Rock Bet lets you live bet all game long from the first bucket to the final buzzer. Try your first bet on Hard Rock Bet today, and you could score $150 in bonus bets if you win. Just place a $5 bet, and if it hits, you get not only your winnings, but an extra $150 in bonus bets. And sure, Hard Rock Bet is Florida's only legal sports book, but you don't have to be in Florida to join the party. Hard Rock Bet is also live in Arizona, Ohio, New Jersey, Indiana, Tennessee, Virginia, Illinois, Colorado, and Michigan, with more states on the way. Download the Hard Rock Bet app today, and let's get the party started. So you can see you have the first screen is Josh Hart. Jose Alvarado is matched up on Wembanyama here. Watch how he cuts behind him and runs up and sets the screen. What ends up happening as a result, when he sets that screen, because Julian Champagnie ends up having to rotate up, that forces Wemby onto OG Anunoby in the strong side corner. This is the hardest spot to help on a drive, right? Because now, as soon as Jalen Brunson gets to his left hand, he knows it's almost impossible for Wemby to rotate from the strong side corner to a left-handed drive going back towards the basket, especially when he's got his defender pinned on his backside, because his defender effectively acts like a shield against Wemby, and he ends up getting in and drawing a foul. So again, that's where that kind of like sprinting in screen set from Jose Alvarado ends up triggering this switch from Champagnie, which forces Wemby onto the best shooter on the team in the strong side corner. I thought this was actually an example of a well-executed play for a good look. We're running our 45 action. Good screens are set. Brunson ends up having to step up in his hedge and recover. That gets OG Anunoby to linger and help. Wemby rolls hard to clear Cat. Julian Champagnie wide open catch and shoot three. That's good offense. When they run their sets right and they execute and they screen well and they engage the extra defender, they tend to get good looks. Brunson ends up turning it over here against Castle, and then I just thought this was a rushed shot from Devin Vassell. Not a terrible look, but a little bit rushed. And you could tell, too, like little details that always kind of go under-discussed in this sort of thing. The pass is in a situation where if you watch his feet, he's just not quite set all the way. He's a little bit rushed, doesn't quite get as much lift. We've seen Devin Vassell shoot. This dude jumps so high on his shot. But because it's a transition three and he's sprinting into it, he's a little fatigued, doesn't get as much lift as he usually gets, and ends up missing the shot. Now, here's the dynamic that ends up leading to the wave screens. Cat catches up top against Wemby. Brunson throws it back to him. Cat kind of fools with Wemby a little bit with some pump fakes. Then on the clear here, Wemby's glued up to Cat, which clears all of this space for Brunson to drive. He ends up beating Champagnie for the right-handed layup. That's what leads Wemby to go to that one-man zone look here down the stretch. Next possession, Wemby wants to set it, but he calls for him to clear out. He wants to attack Brunson. Look at this screen from Champagnie. Champagnie is setting a level screen, and one of the problems with that particular type of screen is it's pretty easy to navigate unless you're already headed downhill with some momentum. Like the screens, when you have more of a flat angle, I like when this guy's got momentum, because then as he's trying to navigate around, he's going to run into that target, and Fox is going to be able to actually beat him and turn the corner. But because he's coming from a static drive situation, OG can easily sidle over the top and get back in front. In this specific situation, I want to see Champagnie take a little bit of a harder angle and actually lay the wood on OG a little bit and actually hit him and make him switch. But instead, it's pretty easy for him to navigate out. He actually ends up getting a half-decent look on the step back, but I thought that was some bad execution on that play as well. Here comes the one-man zone kind of sequence. So now Wemby, after what happened on the Cat play, doesn't want to switch, right? So look at them switch. They pre-switch this screen. Now Wemby's on Alvarado. Cat goes to set the first screen, then Jose sets the second screen. Look at OG Anunoby cut through. OG Anunoby cuts through and creates a harder spacing dynamic. Now, because of this situation, when the Spurs end up kind of doubling the ball out of Brunson's hands, when Brunson swings it around, now look at the dynamic. When Fox rotates up, who's going to go here? There's nobody except for OG Anunoby's man, Julian Champagnie, who closes out hard, which then leads Alvarado an easy driving kick to OG in the corner. Now, one of the things that I thought was fascinating here is De'Aaron Fox, if he knows this rotation is taking place and it's Josh Hart in the corner, It's actually more important for him to just contain Alvarado here. But the passing lane closeout, that passing lane closeout's kind of unnecessary because Julian's closing out. So the passing lane closeout is what gives the angle for Alvarado to drive the closeout, which then engages Wemby and gets the open three for OG. But that's where, like I was talking about earlier, that's why I don't necessarily like cleared side spacing for a team that can really pass the ball well. Keep your corners occupied, stretch the defense. You're going to get better looks that way. This time, the Spurs actually rotate out of it pretty well. So we have our wave screen. They pre-switch onto Cat. Here comes the second screen. Corners are occupied this time. They actually rotate out of it pretty well, though. Jose, instead of swinging to Cat, which could have gotten OG a look, ends up driving. But Jose, to his credit, makes a really nice move here. He baits Wemby with that little spin. He acts like he's turning back. Watch Wemby right when Jose Alvarado goes into his retreat dribble. Wemby plants his left foot and closes out to the corner, which then allows Jose to spin right as Wemby's vacating the lane, which gets him the layup. So even when the Spurs rotate well, it generates a one-on-one advantage for Jose Alvarado, and he just has a speed advantage against Julian Champagny and gets a really good look. I didn't even think this was a good possession, but Wemby does hit the shot. We have a 5-point game now, 3.5 minutes left. Poopy screen. Like, dude, just take the time to set a screen, dude. No, I'm going to lean out. That allows OG to stay home, which allows Cat to stay home. And this is just honestly a bit of nice shot making. That was not a good possession. This is that play I talked about in the open, the random double team of Brunson. So they actually managed to pre-switch. So we talked about this in the game yesterday, or in the post-game show yesterday. What if they just pre-switch both screens, right? Okay, Cat's going to slip out. If Cat's not going to even set a screen, just keep him up. So now he's on Alvarado, right? That's a nice little adjustment from the Spurs defense. Why not, instead of having Vassell follow this guy through and have Wemby stay on the ball, how about we just pre-switch both screens? Really nicely done. But out of that, we have very simple dynamic. You have really good defender on Brunson, really good defender on Alvarado. Just switch the screen. Instead, they double team, end up giving the easy kickback to Alvarado. And again, that's the stuff that's going to get you beat. Not the super tough shot making. Those are the shots that are going to get you beat. I also thought Wemby, again, even just in this situation, Wemby's got to think, I'd rather have Josh Hart shoot than Alvarado. He was just a little slow in his secondary rotation as well. Ensuing possession, 104-100. We get a really ugly De'Aaron Fox possession. Tries to make a dribble move on OG Anunoby, nearly turns it over. We're not running anything, by the way. No real screen. OG Anunoby ends up poking the ball away. We get a step back three. Now, Brunson's going to finally hit a really tough shot here. And again, this is where I think the double teaming is overreacting. Brunson, it's one thing if he's getting a layup against good spacing like he did on that one play with Cat, which, by the way, the Spurs adjusted to. This, though, this is something you can live with. This is a good split the difference type of defensive possession from Wemby. That's a good contest. Nearly blocked it. Really impressive bit of shot making. I don't think you're going to lose a game on a bunch of shots like that the way you can on a bunch of open catch and shoot threes. Last night I blamed this on Wemby for rolling instead of popping. I actually blame Fox now after I look back at it. He just picks up his dribble for no reason. Like, Cat's at the level, but he's not pressuring. Keep your dribble alive. Just keep dribbling. If you drag this out, then as Wemby rolls, you'll have a skip to the weak side. But instead, he ends up just bailing out of it for no reason. Like, why are you picking up your dribble here? Wemby's not even looking. So I ended up putting this on Fox. Josh Hart ends up blowing the layup. This time Wemby does pop as a release valve, which ends up giving him an option. We end up setting the screen. Here's a level screen. This is what I was talking about earlier. I like level screens when the ball handler has momentum, because all he has to do is catch a little bit of OG, and then Fox has to just hit the Jets, and now he's past his man. That engages Cat, which leaves Wemby open on the pop. He then drives the closeout and draws the foul. That's actually a well-executed level screen. Wemby, of course, misses both free throws. This was a good Spurs defensive possession. We get our double screen. Wemby kind of lingers for just a second. They rotate out of it well. Now, all of a sudden, you have Jalen Brunson matched up against the best perimeter defender on the team with 6 seconds on the shot clock. Brunson just makes a really nice move and a really tough shot. Well defended. That's a tough bucket from Jalen Brunson. Again, he hit a couple of tough ones, but I don't think that's how you lose the game. You lose the game with all the easy ones that you give up out of execution errors. This one, Castle just ends up bobbling the pass. I still think I'd like to see a little bit more of a physical screen from Wemby instead of bailing out and actually forcing Cat to engage Fox more so that this can lead to more separation. But you still end up drawing a tag. So you swing. Steph Castle's open. He just bobbles the pass. The one thing that's weird there is Steph Castle's been kind of uninvolved in the offense here for a little while. And when you're uninvolved in the offense for a long stretch, the ball can feel like a foreign object in your hand. But he ends up just bobbling this pass. And when in the ensuing kind of sequence, he drives baseline and gets pushed out of bounds by Josh Hart. Good physical defense from Josh Hart. A little bit of a flop at the end. But this is another example of how clearing the side is a mistake. So, and again, one of the things I want to see here for the Spurs as an adjustment is when Cat bails out here, literally just have Fox stay. Instead of following Cat out, just have Fox stay. Have him then switch on to Alvarado. Steph guards Cat. Dylan guards Josh. Wemby just drops back into his drop coverage again. Your defense is in good shape. Either way, because of the cleared side, look at how congested things are over here. That allows them to rotate out pretty quickly. That's why I prefer to see in this sequence here, like literally just have OG Anunoby cut through baseline. OG Anunoby cuts through baseline, then you swing it to Alvarado, Fox rotates, you swing it to Cat, Castle rotates, Josh Hart's going to be wide open, he can drive a closeout, make the next guy react to him and get an open look. Instead, the play breaks down, and Brunson ends up kind of getting himself into some trouble here along the baseline. Here we get another bad Spurs offensive possession. I understand the 2-for-1, but I'd love to see, again, just a little bit more action. Like, especially since you want to set up your transition defense. Just run that same level screen. Wemby come up. It just worked. Again, we talk about this all the time. Young basketball players, they struggle to replicate what works, and they struggle to cut out what's not working. You just ran this play with Fox up here in a level screen that got Fox to engage Cat and an easy closeout opportunity for Wemby to drive and draw a foul. Instead, Wemby stands in the corner, and your 2-for-1 is just De'Aaron Fox dribbles up into a step back jump shot. Like that's I just don't understand. And Steph Castle ends up bailing you out with a corner crash because Josh Hart's not paying attention. Now, on this possession, I skipped forward so you could see the transition sequence. But on this possession, the Knicks end up just running a basic guard screen. They get Jalen Brunson switched onto Devin Vassell. He ends up turning the corner, shoots a pretty tough contested floater over Wemby. Wemby gets a great contest. He smokes it. De'Aaron Fox, beautiful tap out rebound. Hold the basketball. You draw a foul. You're up 3 with 12.8 seconds left. You most likely win the game. Instead, no one learns their lesson against OG Anunoby. Gets blocked. Ensuing possession, when you double team Brunson, look at how the matchups figure out. Double team Brunson. Now you're asking these 3 guys to win an offensive glass battle against a bunch of size advantages. Mikal, Cat, and OG are literally the 3 tallest players out of these 7 players. Not only that, OG Anunoby's not matched up and has an easy runway to come in. Again, the miss has to be in the perfect spot. OG Anunoby has to make a hell of a play, tip of the cap. But I also think that you put yourself at a pretty significant disadvantage there. And I also thought it was a pretty smart play from Jalen Brunson to understand, I just have to shoot this thing. There's 5 seconds left. My guys have a pretty big advantage on the offensive glass. I actually thought that was a savvy play from Jalen Brunson. And then finally, I'm sitting on the couch next to my wife last night, and I'm like, watch this. Why? Like, Cat is just way taller than Dylan Harper. The play makes a lot of sense. You know Mitchell Robinson's not going to want to switch off of Wemby, right? So as he clears out, him setting the back screen for Steph is really smart because Wemby's not going to get detached from Mitch, so Steph's probably going to be open. But you're asking this small 6'2" guard to pass over a 7-footer, and Cat ends up getting a hand on it. Now, a couple things. Harper needs to throw a pass fake. Harper needs to do something like a decoy, like, oh, pass fake over here before he goes, sure. But like he's also a left-handed player. You're asking a left-handed player to throw a pass over the top of this 7-footer towards a lob. I just would have, in that situation, just sub Harrison Barnes into the game, sub Luke Cornett into the game, whoever it is you think is your best tall passer, sub them into the game here. I see zero case for having your shortest player on the floor be your inbounder in this particular situation. I thought that was another game plan execution error, or I should say game plan error. from Mitch Johnson there down the stretch. So yeah, hard to watch. A lot of mistakes, a lot of avoidable stuff. Definitely a frustrating way for a finals game to go if you're a Spurs fan. But a lot of stuff that can absolutely be cleaned up for Game 5 in terms of just their execution on offense and on the defensive end of the floor. Little things to protect the simple ball screen attack, that wave ball screen attack that the Knicks are running. Again, just have the guy that you have switching on to Cat. Cat's not even setting a screen. So let Cat go up and fake and clear out. Have that guy just linger for a second and have him switch onto the next screen. That way you can keep Wemby at the basket. And then from there, switch your guard screens. Switch your guard screens and try to bait the Knicks into playing Brunson ball. You've controlled the series at stretches when you've convinced the Knicks to play through Jalen Brunson solely. When you allow Jalen Brunson to make easy reads, which to his credit, he made, when you allow Jalen Brunson to make easy reads, you give up a lot of really easy looks, and those are the ones that are going to get you beat over any sort of large sample. All right, guys, that's all I have for today. As always, I sincerely appreciate you guys for supporting us and supporting the show. We will have tomorrow morning a brief episode that's going to be covering the Giannis trade sweepstakes news as well as the LeBron free agency sweepstakes news. We'll be breaking those both down tomorrow morning. After that, we will be off until Saturday night for Game 5 of the NBA Finals. I will see you guys live after the final buzzer on Saturday night.